Hey everyone, it's Louis, and today really happy to be back on CyberLink 18. Today we discuss about our product updates, business development updates, also financials, and I think the number one theme that we want to have during the CyberLink is why is XBorg and XBG built to last? So we'll quickly start with a market outlook. Since our first, our last CyberLinks from last quarter, the macro and the market really took a hit. We were a bit surprised, and I think the overall equity markets, the bond market was also surprised at the effects and backdrops of the tariffs from Trump. I think we all had very high expectations going into Q1. But what we saw from Trump is he went super aggressive on tariffs, and that's not something that the overall market was pricing in. And high expectations plus high leverage created a lot of drawdowns on equity, and that also meant that crypto followed. Now, our view at the moment on the markets is that we've obviously bounced back since then, but our view is that crypto assets and equities will see all-time highs, and that we'll see some periods of excess and euphoria into the market going to the summer. But then we see some range-bound conditions into the summer, so July, August, September, where you'll still have a lot of volatility, and that's going to be driven by the Trump administration and all of the announcements that they will make. But we also think that you'll see the actual effects of tariffs, i.e. higher prices, obviously inflation. We will see the impacts on consumer consumption, but also GDP. And that's where we believe we'll have a shaky market during the summer. But we're still very confident that over the medium term, the impact of the Trump administration will be positive for the markets. We believe that this will lead to a lower dollar index, which is great for risk assets. We believe that the bond market will stabilize, and that overall we'll have rate cuts going into late this year and going to next year. And overall, as we all know, crypto is very driven by liquidity, and we'll be able to tell that more liquidity brings the market higher. And overall, those conditions will lead to great medium and long term. Obviously, we have to be aware that Trump is bringing a lot of volatility into the markets, but we remain very bullish. And I think macro-wise in crypto, if we look a bit closer at what happened in Q1, we have to remain very optimistic about what's happening. We have the giants of finance entering the space, like BlackRock, Fidelity. We have companies that are piling in to buy more Bitcoin. We have a great regulatory framework with the Genius stablecoin bill that passed recently. We have the US companies that now are allowed to offer staking services and perps, and that means that the crypto market as a whole is growing its in terms of adoption. That's not something we saw in the price of crypto assets, but regulatory frameworks allow for the new wave of iteration and innovation into the crypto space. There are things that we can be worried about. For example, when we have MicroStrategy and we see all the different copycats that are piling into debt to acquire more crypto assets, there are things that we can legitimately be worried about, like tariffs and the impact that this will have on the economy. But fundamentally, crypto has never been that strong. 2021 was led by a lot of skepticism, but now crypto is a separate asset class with the Bitcoin ETFs that had, I think, over the year-to-date 2025, was the fifth biggest ETF in the world in terms of inflows, and that's massive. Enough said about markets. We wanted to go straight in with XBorg AI and what this all means for XBorg. So we've announced XBorg AI back in NFT Paris, and it's been some time now, and we know the community has many questions around what is XBorg AI, who is building XBorg AI, and why we're doing it. So XBorg AI is the R&D company of XBorg. It's a company that's building AI products built on top of the XBorg protocol. So you have to think of it as just a group of individuals that are building those products, and those products are deeply intertwined with what we do at XBorg. We've built this because we want it to be a lot more agile, create more products, innovate a lot faster, but also be at the cutting edge of AI. And today, this allows us to move much faster, to innovate into a new field that we, as a team, had no real expertise, and to iterate a lot faster. We'll go into the product and to the business development, but XBorg as the fan app part is becoming quite mature, and so innovating then becomes harder as you have more clients, and so we had to get AI run. There were questions about financing on XBorg AI, and we've made an announcement that we had raised capital, and here I'm announcing that we have raised capital from none other than just myself. So I'm financing the operations of XBorg AI out of pocket expenses. The reason being that, well, first, I'm the number one believer in what we do at XBorg. They also did not want, especially in the conditions that we see the market and the volatility, to impact our runway. We'll go into the financials, but XBorg is not profitable just yet, although we make revenues. But we still wanted to innovate and to allow ourselves to gain a substantial market share in AI and gaming. And so it's purely financed by just myself at this stage. And that might change as we get XBorg into a profitability stage, but today I feel comfortable injecting money into this new venture. We've got questions about what is XBorg AI compared to XBorg and who owns what. So it's XBorg that owns 100% of XBorg AI. Is there a new token to be expected? No, there is no new token to be expected. Everything goes to XBG holders. In fact, the only way you should see it as is just an addition in value that's created for XBorg and for XBG. It does not necessarily consume more resources from XBorg. It's just adding resources, adding more capital to the company. And yeah, that's XBorg AI. In terms of key dates, the first product at an MVP stage is going to be released after the summer. We're currently working on that product. But we're building something short-term, so you can expect some activation. It's going to be a way in which we gain market share in AI into the crypto field, but also create a small community around the product that we're building. And so we're quite excited about this. Now going into product updates. Going into Q1, especially as we saw the volatility in the crypto assets, but also equity, I've given a direction to solely focus on the fan app SDK within our product range. So we haven't worked on the launchpad, we haven't worked on many other things except the fan app SDK. For us, it was key because that's exactly where we have traction. So we wanted to focus on a couple of aspects. One is scalability, the other is retention, and last is monetization. So what we've done as far as scalability is concerned is we've migrated our backend infrastructure from Heroku to AWS. That enables us to have a lot more concurrent users and to handle the backend loads just like any large software service would be able to handle, which we were not able to handle in the past. In terms of retention, we've built two things. One is the shop. So you probably saw the shop and the loot boxes. That enables any sports teams to offer items for sale through points. We also added newsfeed. Newsfeed is a way in which we build a product that's closer to something like Patreon, where you can have your tight-knit community, and you can have this behind a paywall. And that's the third pillar, which is monetization. Is we have built a subscription model that's today powered by Stripe will add XBG into the loop. But what Stripe is allowing us to do is to have monthly subscriptions that esports teams can offer their fans. Against that, they have better experiences. So gated contents in the newsfeed, a gated shop section, more credits on their app. So just premium experiences overall, something that we're very used to across Patreon and other apps like OnlyFans, etc. Overall, what we've done in Q1 is we've leveled up our stack, so we are on par and above par on certain aspects, like the avatar, to what the industry is offering. And that enables us to partner with much bigger brands. And what this means for XBG holders is you'll see more brand partnerships. More brand partnerships mean more revenues, but it also means more potential XBG integrations to the app as we monetize the users. And more revenues and more XBG usage is also positive for the XBG volume, the traction, number of holders, etc. The backdrops of better product developments has led to better conversations with esports teams. Today, happy to announce that we have signed Evil Geniuses. That's our latest addition to the BD cohort of apps that are going live. By the time I record this, we haven't actually announced it. And by the time we publish this video, it's probably out there. Hopefully I'm not leaking anything here. Evil Genesis is a US esports entity that's been created more than 20 years ago. It's one of the most recognized esports team that's been widely recognized on Counter-Strike, but also Dota 2. So we're very happy to have them join the XBorg family and join our infrastructure. Today, that means that we have 5 esports teams that we've announced. So just to recap, we have NIP, Team BDS, Team Liquid, JDJ, and Evil Genesis. I'm also happy to confirm that we have 15 other brands and esports teams in the pipeline. So teams that we are actively working with or negotiating with as far as contract terms are concerned. We've also made progresses in the verticals that we are approaching. So soon enough, you'll not just hear about esports teams that we're partnering with, but much bigger companies. We've realized that the stack that we've built, the FanApp SDK that we've built, caters to not only esports teams, but much bigger companies. And we're talking about some of the largest companies in the world that we are today discussing with. And we're talking about none other than companies in the Fortune 500. So you'll hear about these announcements. We believe that this is going to be the next leap forward for XBorg. We're not just going to be a tech provider for smaller entities. Esports remains a small industry. But much bigger ones that are still very much intertwined with the gamification, gaming industry or gamification to some degree. Don't want to leak too much as far as who's going to be announced next, but it's going to be within brands that have an impact or footprint into the gaming world. So, for example, it could be a football club that has pretty strong ties to gaming, could be a very large sponsor of gaming brands, a very large sponsor that has impacts on esports industries. We'll leave it at this for now. But that was the updates on business dev so far. As far as financials are concerned, obviously, every market faces a lot of people, especially when it goes down, people ask us where we stand financially. And they're 100% right about asking those questions, especially as we saw recently a lot of Web3 gaming projects shut down. It felt awful to see that in the last few weeks or so, almost every day you could hear about new gaming projects shutting down. The truth is, crypto is filled with startups, And startups have a pretty high failure rate. We believe that at XBorg we are somewhat different. We're not profitable yet, but the way we're building things lead us to profitability. Will lead us to profitability much faster than the other companies. Reason being that we are not a cyclical crypto business or your typical crypto business, in the sense that we operate with Web2 brands. And that means that, for example, Team Liquid or NIP, that a few names I can mention, it's not because Bitcoin is going down 30% or that Solana is going down 80% that they're going to stop the contractual relationship that we have with them. For Team Liquid, for example, we have like 3-year contracts that, by the way, we've just renewed. And that means that our revenues are not impacted at all by the market conditions. And that's great because most of the protocols, like DeFi protocols, etc., once the activity goes down, well, there is no revenues anymore. And that's not the case for us. We took the direction quite early on to focus on what made money for XBorg. We could have innovated a lot more on the XBorg ID side and the whole data layer, which is still something that we are working on, but it's not something that makes money. So we have to be conscious that over the medium term, any company that does not make money and that's not profitable is not going to be around. And that's just a fact. So my goal as founder and CEO is to put XBorg on the right rails so that we have a clear path forward to profitability. That's also because that's how I see the crypto market evolving. Over the next 2-3 years, most crypto projects are not going to be around because they're not profitable. Back in the days, the whole model of crypto was you would sell your tokens, and that's your main revenue streams. But obviously, as we saw the altcoin market struggling, that's not quite sustainable. So today, in terms of key data that we have, so we have a 3-year runway. That means that over the next 3 years, and that's discounted to any revenues. So over the next 3 years, we can keep maintaining the same team, building at the same pace, and we're still going to be around. Now, what's going to happen at the end of the 3 years is, should we not make revenues, then obviously we'll struggle. We'll potentially need to raise more capital, etc. But that's not where we are today. Today, I want to emphasize that we are not profitable. Today, we cover a good chunk of our runway, but it's not sufficient to call us profitable, and that's also because crypto as an industry is an expensive industry when it comes to growth, KOLs, etc. It is very expensive to do activations with KOLs because we're doing those mostly with stablecoins or cash, so we don't use XBG for this. Today, we burn about $1.5 million US dollar a year, and that's essentially, if we don't make revenues, that's exactly what goes out of our bank accounts and wallets in a year. Now we understand that the community wants to hear about the metrics, wants more granularity over revenues, forecast, expenses. And instead of displaying them on today's CyberLink, we are building this transparency dashboard, which we are committed to release in June. So it's going to be, we believe that might not be at the first iteration, but over time, it's going to be the most comprehensive transparency dashboard that we'll have in crypto land. I have a whole slide here that shows exactly what we're going to show, and I'm going to go through them so you'll see what you'll have on this transparency dashboard. I'm going to start with the forecasts. A lot of community members ask about forecasts, and that's normal. We do our forecast ourselves. You'll have different forecasts. One is bull case, base case, and bear case, like many forecasts. And there's going to be forecast of 3-year revenue projections, 3-year BD projections. So how many contracts are we going to sign? 3-year user count progress. So how many users do we forecast within our ecosystem? By the way, just as a side note, I forgot to mention it in the earlier slide, but we've just crossed 1 million credentials that's inscribed into the XBorg data layer. That means that we've gathered about 1 million data points of players around the world. It's a small achievement, but still something that's worthy to be mentioned. On the key points that they will be on the transparency dashboard, you'll have the historical total user counts and monthly active users, historical total credential counts, so just 1 million by now. On the FanApp SDK specifically, you'll have the historical business development pipeline, so you'll see exactly the number of hot leads we have, cold leads we have, app that we're building, apps that are live. You'll see the historical development activity, so you'll see exactly like our engineering team, what they're doing. You'll see, well, not exactly in technical terms, you'll see how much work has been put into a specific repository. Won't go into the details just here. You'll see a change log. So on the FanApp SDK specifically, what are we releasing? It's going to be updated week by week. So you'll see, okay, last 2 weeks, that's what we've done. The weeks before, that's also what we've done. So as community is concerned, you'll see historical governance participation rates, social activity across Discord and X. You'll see the traffic that there is on the XBorg.com website, or different URLs that we have. You'll see the historical XBG holders. In the finance, you'll see runway forecast, monthly expense breakdown, historical revenue breakdown. And there is something that's interesting that's I don't see many doing, is the full list of contributor fees that we have, or employee fees that you have. It's essentially just salaries that there is across the board. So when we break down the expenses, you'll see how much is going to the people working behind XBorg, and you'll see who earns what within the team. For security, privacy reason, you won't see the name specifically, but you'll see the department. And one point that I really wanted to have is also the full list of XBG bonus. Just like we have the salaries for the contributors and employees, you'll see who gets what as far as XBG bonus is concerned. As you know, there's a good deal of tokens that's allocated to the team, and we want to make sure it is transparently allocated and fair within the team, and the community will be able to have access to this. Now the elephant in the room, XBG. I'm not happy with the performance of XBG so far. 2024 was a great year for XBG. Q1 was bad for XBG. We can say what we want about the market, but XBG hasn't outperformed Ether, hasn't outperformed Solana, and we just had a bad Q1. And one metric that I look at, number one metric to me, as I wake up every morning, I look at this metric, is the holder count. Is how many people are holding XBG today, and how is this trending over time? And when I look at our ecosystem, I can say, okay, it's growing because, and here I'm talking about the crypto aspect, is because, okay, it is growing if holders are increasing. It is declining if holders are declining, and it's stagnating if holders are stagnating. And today, holder count is flat from like the 1st of Jan 2025, which to us is not acceptable. So our number one North Star in our growth department is holder count, as we want to do whatever it takes through 2025 to reverse that trend, because what we had in Q1 is really not acceptable. So how are we going to get more holders? And the question here is, who is our marginal buyer of XBG today? Well, it's going to be two things. One is XBorg AI. As we discussed in the XBorg AI part, very shortly you'll have an activation with XBorg AI, so there will be a side product that you'll see. There will be a lot of activations about what we're doing with XBorg AI, what this means for XBG. And overall, through the XBorg AI products, because we're talking about a new vertical, which is pretty different than gaming, although it's somewhat gaming related, it's going to attract a new cohort of holders. People that were not necessarily exposed to gaming and that now want to get exposure into AI. Into gaming specifically, fundamentals, we believe, is going to play a big role. Today in the crypto lands, we see projects like Aave, Hyperliquid, that are driven by a lot of revenues, a lot of traction, get a lot of momentum into the markets. And we believe that this is going to continue. And so for us to get marginal buyers into the gaming world, but also other sectors, we just have to show great fundamentals, and we have to continue doing what we're doing on the FanApp SDK, which is more features, more products, more announcements of esports teams, and not just esports teams, but also bigger brands and entities that will collaborate with us. Obviously, those are the two pillars. That does not mean like KOL activations won't come, but we believe that the two core focus today for XBorg to get the holder count up is focusing on XBorg AI, focusing on the fundamentals of and displaying the fundamentals for XBorg as a whole. And those are two different cohorts of investors that we believe will be able to successfully attract through Q2 and the remainder of 2025. We had a lot of great questions about XBG. One was the XBG trading competition. That's now finished. And we're not particularly happy with the execution. I think from the tech side, a few things went wrong. From the effects that we had on the competition, number one metric that we look at is the holder count, and that remains flat through the competition. So to us, it means the objectives that we had was not fulfilled. We've reflected a lot internally on why is that, and we believe that this was an oversight and that the trading competition was not the right product at the right time for the right people, is that the people interested in XBG are not really traders per se, but more medium, long-term investors into crypto. And so we've, in fact, created a product that did not serve the right audience. So a lot of learnings there, and that's definitely something we don't want to do in the future. In the OTC raise and buybacks, so initially we were meant to do it on XBorg. XBorg, because of the number of activations that we've done with them, the seed round and the raises, have decided not to do the sale on their app. And that leaves us with, obviously, other options. We're not solely reliant on XBorg in itself. That, I think, is a very good news. So today we're looking at alternatives to do an OTC raise and to do the same mechanism that was passed during the proposal. And so we're looking at a platform like Eco that was created by one crypto OG. It's called Kobe. But we're also looking at other platforms also to run it internally. We had a bunch of questions about XBG on Base as well. That's been a proposal that went out quite some time. Base is well known for AI with the virtual ecosystem, notably. And so we will be on Base by the time we have a lot of traction on the AI side. And last question was, what about centralized exchanges and Hyperliquid? Well, Hyperliquid's, the number one thing we're waiting from them is that they have to open source their nodes so that the Wormhole Foundation can build a bridge that passports tokens across to Hyperliquid so that the buyer experience is very smooth and optimized, so that you can buy tokens on Hyperliquid, transfer them over to Arbitrum and then Ethereum. We could, in theory, go live with Hyperliquid today, but that means that when you buy tokens on Hyperliquid, you're pretty much stuck there and you can't bring them to Arbitrum or Solana, whatever chain. And lastly, the sexes. A lot of people ask still, when are we going to be on the large exchanges? We're not going to be listing on exchanges until we see that a lot of new capital is coming in and that coming into the crypto space, but also when we think that it's actually valuable to be on exchanges. Today, obviously, we're closely monitoring the market. We don't see any value in getting on CEXs. It's just not bringing any marginal buyers. And when you see the downside of being on exchanges, so the fee, but also the market maker fee, and the burden that comes with market makers, which is loan agreements and eventually market manipulation, we don't want to be involved with this. So it's only if the downside of having market makers is offset by the upside of having a lot of new marginal buyers. Only if that condition is met will we get into exchanges. We've also had a lot of questions about XBG utility, and there will be updates coming on the different product verticals that we are building. So like each vertical will come with an infographic on how money flows into that product and how this impacts XBG. But I wanted here to take one example specifically of the FanApp SDK, because that's exactly what we're focusing on at the moment is when you look at the product team, engineering team, and all the resources, it's 95% of people work on the FanApp SDK today. So today, as we onboard more brands, more companies, more esports teams, that means that there is more revenues that comes to XBorg, because each contract comes with a fee that comes with retainer, but also fees on transactions in-app. That's why we're building Stripe integrations and other monetization tools like loot boxes, etc., so that each payment that goes through the app, we get a cut of this. And that's net revenues that's going to the XBorg ecosystem. The cool thing about having more brands, more esports teams, is also the ability to have more XBG integration. So today, the only payment options that we have is Stripe, but in the near future, it's going to be XBG that's going to be in the apps. So just imagine having NIP and their fans be able to purchase wearables, to purchase subscriptions with XBG. So that's not only going to bring more volume to XBG, but also considerable footprint as far as holders are concerned. Like there's only so few protocols that will have access to all the fans of esports teams and brands all over the world. So it's more brands, more potential integrations, more revenues, and more revenues means more fundamentals for XBorg, but also at some point, revenues that will directly flow to XBG holders in forms of either buybacks or directly dividends, and that I think is really dependent on how regulation plays out. Also, as far as HR is concerned, we've seen a ton of people and companies lay people off, and we're actually doing quite the opposite. That's also because of how we are financially and how confident we are on the product. So we've hired a new front engineer, Vladi, that used to work on pretty interesting protocols in crypto. We've hired a new social media manager, Danny. Welcome to the team. We've hired Jeremy, that is working with XBorg AI. Jeremy's been in the crypto space for quite some time. He runs a pretty successful podcast in the gaming space. And he's also built a lot of products before, and he's helping us on the product side on XBorg AI. Today, we're looking for more people to join us, notably backend engineers and QA engineers. Also, I've made the announcement on X, but I've reduced my salary to the bare minimum, like the bare legal minimum, so that I can still be employed. But my goal is to say I'm not going to receive any monetary incentives from XBorg until we have reached the profitability stage. And that's my number one goal. Next we have, and that's going to be the last part, it's going to be about the ITOs. It's been a recurring topic, and we've got a ton of questions here on when they're coming, who are we doing them with, why are they better than fan tokens, etc. So we officially have 2 persons working on the first ITO. It's going to be on in the poker industry. So the concept is quite cool, is you'll be able to have healthy financial returns or like financial value created from sponsoring new players to enter new tournaments. That's a name called, there's something called stacking on the poker industry. And so it's going to be advised and supervised by pro poker players. And it is, to us, a pretty exciting venture. And so that wraps up the CyberLink number 18. Thank you so much for watching this CyberLink. I hope you learned more about our products, our progress on the product side, business development, and I hope you're as excited as we are for a great 2025.